Hey guys and girls, this is Alish from gainmedialab.com. Welcome to my exciting world of live audio mixing. In this video, we conclude the series on mixing the entire drum set, and we talk about some parallel compression and answer some of your questions. But before we get into all that, make sure that you have subscribed to this channel and turned on notifications so that you don't miss any of the videos that I post every Monday. With all that out of the way, let's just go. In the previous videos, we talked about how to dial in all of the details for all of the channels that we have of the drum kit. Then we also talked about applying effects so that you can get some spatial information on your drum set. In this particular video, I want to focus on parallel compression and answering some of the questions that have popped up on the YouTube channel while I was making this series. Now, I've already made a video on parallel compression, so I won't go into all of the details. I will just show you guys what my mental process is for creating this spank bus or this parallel compression bus, how I use it, and then we can discuss the routing and all of the stuff that comes with it. So first of all, I just suggest that we remind ourselves of where we are actually at by playing some multi-track. Okay, so this is basically where we are at. We have added all of our channels to the drum bus. We have also added some effects to them so you can hear the space in this multi-track. Now, there was a question on the YouTube channel regarding whether or not it is, prudent to talk about drums and mixing drums in isolation without the rest of the band. I completely agree that everything should be mixed in context with the other channels and with everything else that is going on in the mix. But for the purposes of this series, I just wanted to show you guys what my mental process is when I approach mixing drums and how I do that. So I think when we talk about them in isolation, that just basically shows what I focus on when I mix, how I mix, and so on. But yeah, definitely mix in context, and that will define your sound. That will define the way that you add effects. That will define basically the entire structure of your drum kit sound. However, most of the approach will hold true. So setting up the input gain, making sure that you have the proper gain structure throughout, focusing on key problematic frequencies will probably stay the same whether or not you're mixing in context or not. Finding the balance will also be probably the same. So there's a lot of things that you can sort of get from this series and apply it to mixing drums at your own pace in your own context. Okay, so parallel compression, like I said, I already done a video on adding effects in parallel compression, so I won't go into that much detail about how to set it up, but here's the gist of it. So we have all of our inputs routed into two separate buses, and we do that by creating two stereo subgroups on your mixer and then adding both of them to those subgroups and taking them out of the stereo bus. So the input channels are going into the drum bus and then into the main left-right. And also they are going into the spank bus, which is basically the parallel compression bus, and then into the main left-right. One thing that you should remember is that when you are adding effects to these drums, they should be synchronized. So time alignment is crucial here. If you are adding internal effects, so basically just channel effects, that should be A non-brainer, there's usually no issues there. But even if you're adding effects from the effects rack, you will get inherent delay because of the added processing. And that will lead into comb filtering and all kinds of frequency cancellations. So make sure that you are mindful of that so that you don't mess up your sound in the final stages. So for this particular parallel compression bus, I'm just using the onboard channel dynamics. And let's just go in and start dialing and tweaking some knobs and see what we can get from it. Now, the purpose of the parallel compression bus is to basically add more attack, add more punch, add more presence to the drum kit. But I don't want to personally influence the overheads and the hi-hats, so basically all of the cymbals are removed from this particular drum bus. Or I should say the spank bus, the parallel compression bus. So all of the channels are added into the non-processed drum bus, so the clear drum bus, and all of the channels except for the overheads and the hi-hat are added to the parallel compression bus, because I don't want the compressor to sort of engage into that high frequency region. It will just create a lot of pumping. It will be very audible. It will sound unnatural. So yeah, that's routed there, and let's just see what happens when we start adding stuff. Okay. So this is basically just adding a bit of the second drum bus to the first one. And you can hear it's basically just getting louder because we are duplicating the signal. Okay, so let's mute the original drum bus and just have this parallel compression bus. So you can hear that I don't have any of the cymbals present. So I have the kicks, the snares, and the toms routed to this bus. And let's just jump into the dynamics. Alright, engage them. And we'll go really, really extreme. So ratio 10:1, and we'll start lowering the threshold so we can hear what the compressor is doing. Very slow, I should say very fast released, because I just want to sort of tame the transients. And a medium-ish attack, so 25 milliseconds is a bit much, maybe a bit lower. And you can really hear the compressor working in this extreme setting. Okay. Let's just compare with and without. With. Although I'm getting around 8 to 10 dB of gain reduction. I'm not actually setting the makeup gain to that much, so I'm leaving it at about 4 dB because I don't want to sort of add too much signal into the mix when I'm adding it to the original drum bus, right? I won't go into any of the key filters or key solos because I want to sort of get the entire drum kit. I'm not focusing on specific frequencies. So again, this is with, without, and you can hear the pumping, right? But let's just listen to what happens to the entire drum sound when this is slowly added into the mix. We get a bit more attack, we get a bit more punch, we also get a bit more level. So maybe just dropping the original drum bus a bit. Now I'll mute the parallel compression bus so you can hear the difference. This is the original sound with, without. So it adds a new dimension to it. It adds more width, it adds more attack, it adds more punch. And I'm successfully using this parallel compression approach for a lot of the genres that I'm, working with, the various bands that I'm working with. But it's particularly useful for genres where there's lots and lots of dynamics. I'm currently working with a fusion band where they go from, really, really soft jazz playing to high-driven sort of rock and roll sound. Instead of, constantly changing and tweaking the sound of those drums, I use parallel compression on them just to go quickly from one sound to the other. And it allows me to sort of blend in just the exact amount of dynamics that I need for that particular drum kit. So it's not only for heavy hitting rock and roll drums all of the times. It can be also great for taming very dynamic drummers and applying, effects for particular genres. It's great for punching in and out, let's say, a particular section of a song. So if you want, let's say, the chorus of a song to sound bigger, just add a little bit of it, unmute it for a specific section, and then mute it for the rest of the song. It allows you to have more creativity with your mix. I suggest that you also, again, take a look at the video where I added various effects to this particular parallel compression bus to add even more dimension to that. I won't do that again because, I've already done it in the previous video, but go check that one out. I think you will find it very informative. There was one more question that I want to tackle, and that is how you basically do this setup. So how do you create this parallel compression stuff? And I already went over that quickly, but let's just recap. So you have to create 2 subgroups on your console, 2 stereo subgroups. You can maybe, let's just, right. So this is my first subgroup. It's called the drum bus. And then this is my second subgroup. It's called the spank bus. And what you can see here on the channels are basically assignments. So you can see that I'm muting and unmuting or sending signals to a particular drum bus. So that would be sending it to drum bus 3-4, which is my spank bus. And this, for example, would be sending it to channels 1 and 2, or the subgroup 1 and 2, which is basically my clear bus. What you have to have in mind then is that you have to take out all of the individual channels from the stereo bus or from the main left-right bus, because you will otherwise have 2 different path lengths, and that will create comb filtering. So you have to be mindful of that time alignment. And then both of these groups are then routed into the main left-right bus, or another matrix if you want to, or whatever your setup is. And that's basically it. And then one more thing that I want to always be mindful of is that I also want to route my effects return that I'm using for a particular drum kit to that drum bus. So if I'm adjusting drum bus levels, that doesn't change any of the ratios between the dry and wet signals for my direct channels. I hope that makes sense, and I hope that you can sort of recreate this particular setup from my explanation. Okay, I guess we've come to the end of the series. I'm so glad that you have watched it. If you have stuck with me from the beginning until the end, I hope you learned something new. I hope you can apply this to your own work. Let me know in the comments below if there's a specific topic that you want me to tackle next. But we will continue with our regularly scheduled program next week. If you like this video, don't forget to share and subscribe. If you want to have access to more content, please visit gainmedialab.com, where you can find more blog posts and more videos and more audio delicious stuff. Thanks for watching. Take care. Mix great shows. Bye.